Welcome. For those of you, not everyone here is taking this as a class, but some of you are. And for those of you taking this as a class, just a quick reminder that you have another paper due a week from today. And that caught some of you by surprise. And also by way of announcements, we have an information meeting for the Truman Scholarship, which actually is quite related to what our guest will be speaking about today, because the Truman Scholarship is for those who intend to engage in a life of public service, and for those who have already started down that path. If you're interested in learning more, Truman Scholarship is an extraordinarily nice scholarship in terms of monetary reward, and it's for those who are a little younger in their university careers, sophomore level, junior level, probably best sophomore. You should come to our information meeting on Tuesday, November 15th at 3 p.m. in 2113 JKB. Okay? So having got those announcements out of the way, we are so pleased today to have Carolyn Dailey with us, who is the president and CEO of Ascent, a humanitarian alliance, a nonprofit organization, and she's going to help us understand a lot more about that. She is a servant, leader, scholar, entrepreneur, humanitarian, wife, mother, and seasoned executive with over 30 years of experience in management and fundraising. During 19 years as an executive for international humanitarian efforts, Carolyn has facilitated integrated community development programs, service adventure expeditions, and internships in 12 countries, as well as assisted partnering organization in several other countries. Her vision for Ascend is a long-term sustainability through diversified self-reliance, where development activities, families, communities, and Ascend operations become self-sufficient. She was selected by the Romney Institute of Public Management as Administrator of the Year, received Freedom Foundation's Heroes Award, and Utah Business Magazine selected her as one of the 30 business women to watch. Carolyn and her husband Ken are partners in real estate. Her passions include family, friends, church, service, music, sports, speech, drama, and outdoor adventures. I feel like I'm describing myself a little bit here. She enjoys the challenge and reward of Ascend's motto, lift others, lift yourselves. So I'm especially pleased to welcome her and very excited to have her with us. Thank you, Carolyn.
So it's my pleasure to be here with you today, and we better get the computer unlocked for starters since it went to sleep. So that's assuming we can get my password right. So it is fun to be with you today, and before we get started, I wanted to give a little precursor to the fact that we'd really like to have this a little bit more of a discussion this evening. And even though it will be videotaped, I think the interaction that we'll have this evening will make it just that much more interesting in terms of that taping that might take place tonight. And I hope you'll all feel very comfortable asking questions and not even waiting necessarily till the end of the presentation. That as we're discussing different slides and as we're having this opportunity to get better acquainted this evening, that you'll take the opportunity freely to raise your hand and ask a question and interrupt me. That's part of the reason I'm here this evening, is to have the opportunity to really respond to the things that you would like to hear. Ascend is a little bit like a blank book, perhaps, to some of you tonight. And you know, one or two of you might have seen this before, but I kind of like to do a little magic as I start out, and it helps us to get a little bit more interactively involved. This is one of our annual reports. And right now, you may not know very much about us, and you may not know a whole lot about careers in public service, so it might look a little bit blank, kind of like this blank book, okay? And I hope that as we go through the evening and as we get better acquainted, that we might get to a process where, at least by midpoint, you'll be seeing a little bit of a picture of what this might be all about. Now, as we go through the evening and you ask a question, that's what I consider a little bit of magic. So I'm going to have you all add your magic touches through the evening with your questions, and then we'll see what it comes out to be at the end. I'm going to hold you all speechless, I know. So in any event, our motto and our mission is to lift others and lift yourself. One of the topics that I love to discuss is careers in international development and nonprofit organizations. And I've entitled it appropriately this evening, I hope, Skinny Wallet, Fat Life. So my husband and I have talked about that a lot in terms of what that means to us. We have a lot of friends, and I'm just going to give you an example here. We have friends who make a lot more money than we do. We have friends who have really wonderful fancy houses and have really big expenses. And it was interesting because we get together with these friends on a regular basis and we compare our lives. And one of my friends who is on the advisory council for BYU's MBA school was visiting with us recently, and we were comparing a couple of things. We were comparing family experiences, our sense of well-being. That was the second thing we were comparing. And the final thing was net worth. So what do you think happened? What do you think happened as we had that discussion with our MBA friend who's an asset manager and has been 24/7 at his job, oftentimes, 90 hours a week, very few vacations, made a lot of money, and then the market crashed 3 years ago, and he lost a lot of money. So here was how the scenario broke down. He wished he had kind of the more diversified portfolio and net worth that we had. Ironically, our net worths were very similar. And we're good enough friends that we could share that. He'd made a lot, tons more than we'd ever made. We're pretty conservative, just kind of plodded along and set things aside. And he can't retire now. He has no option for retirement. He's going to be working probably another 10 or 15 years because his spending rate versus his income was keeping pretty good pace. He talked about life adventures, and he looked at us and he said, wow, I wish our family had had the same kind of experiences that your family had had. I wished we'd lived that life dream that you've had the opportunity to live. And then he came back to the fact of general overall well-being and happiness. He's overweight, he's out of shape, used to be a studly athlete, but just kind of didn't have the time and didn't make the time. And as he looks back at his life, and we're same age, they were MBA school buddies, my husband and this gentleman, and as we look back at our lives, my husband's comment was, skinny wallet, fat life. So we feel very blessed in that sense. So with that precursor, let me tell you a little bit about Ascent and what it's developed into being, so it will help us with our conversation today. The topic, the international development career with a non-governmental organization. Is my mic working okay? Can you hear me if I walk a little bit? Okay. So career with a non-governmental organization. The second title of tonight's evening is Dream Job or Disaster. And for some of you, it may end up by the end of the evening that you'll think it might be a dream job. I always thought it was a dream job when I came into it. Wendy, did you think it was a dream job when you started? Okay. So have you seen any of this side? Yes, we've seen the disastrous side. So I guess the precursor to my comments tonight before I even start telling you about Ascent is that if you're involved in a non-governmental organization, it's very similar to many other careers. It's very similar to my friend that I shared this story about, right? You can have a little bit of both. A little bit of your dream job and a little bit of disaster. Is it not working?
Yeah. Can we maybe move it up or double check it?
Okay.
I hate to interrupt you, but
No,
on the
no.
other hand, we do have people who rely on this.
Okay, so how about now?
Maybe it's not switched on. Let's take a look at the.
Switched on? Sorry. Okay, it's not switched on. Yeah, that's right. Probably better not go there. Okay. Probably better not go there. I could have had Wendy help me. She's very techie, so it's probably my fault for not double checking that it was on. Now can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. So in terms of Ascend specifically as an organization, we've had 30 years of experience in sustainable international development, and specifically we've chosen to enhance that through volunteer expeditions and internships. a wonderful, you'll see some wonderful heartwarming photos throughout this process. This is part of those life experiences and sense of well-being that we talked about, as well as the wonderful adventures as we've interacted across the world with children and families in need. So Ascent has a rich level of experience, and I've been involved for almost 20 of those 30 years now. Whoops, went backwards. Our mission is to lift others, lift yourself, and specifically we lift families in need, strengthening participants, and supporting partnering organizations. Now, there was a time that I will tell you in our organization that we had a lot of in-country operations, and we had a very high overhead. We've gone to a streamlining process over this wonderful economic challenge that we've had, and focused back to our roots, where we're partnering a lot. And I was just visiting this today earlier, talking about how this really is our new focus and our new direction with Ascend, is really taking us back to our roots. This is where we started, as a partnering organization with other established organizations in the countries where we're taking these expeditions and internships. I want to introduce Reed Simmons, who's here tonight. Reed, raise your hand. Reed is one of our interns. Now, Reed comes from the finance side of things. And Reed has been very busy with us, learning a lot of things in terms of how businesses actually operate and helping us to launch some socially responsible businesses as a part of our ongoing revenue streams with Ascend. Reed will hopefully hang around at the end, and if those of you may have some questions about the internships, he can answer it from a student perspective. Brenda Rindelsbach is also here. She can raise her hand. And Brenda is responsible for our operations, so she also interfaces and interacts with our interns and our expeditions very directly. Wendy Cochimilio, who I didn't introduce you to formally when I asked her if she'd seen this disastrous side, is also our executive director. And so I am so happy to be in a mode where I am hoping to be able to step away from the day-to-day operations of Ascent and have Wendy take the helm. So we're in that process of a transition, and I'm hoping by the end of 2012 I can just be a board member and be a little bit more on the retired end and be a grandma and enjoy the wonderful process of a brand new granddaughter that I have, and more that are hopefully coming in the wings. So that's a little bit of an introduction to our team. In terms of our focus at Ascend, accomplishing our mission. Okay, wonderful. We've gotten much better at making sure we follow our values and guiding principles. This has come from a lot of experience. And the reason I put this up here in these slides to be helpful to you is if you're interested or you might be involved in a nonprofit organization, if these things aren't going on in your nonprofit organization, would strongly encourage you to move in a direction to try to get so that you're utilizing these tools. Core competencies. We had to figure out what we were very best at. And we decided that was expeditions and internships. And though we were good at a lot of other things as well, we decided we were going to really focus on those core competencies. Such an important thing, especially in these challenging economic times. Vision and paradigm. If you're not on the same page, if you still think that some of your board members or some people within the organization might have a little different vision than perhaps the organization is headed, this is an important part of the process that you discuss as a team and as an organization, that vision and paradigm. We've done a good job of that this year. Mission progress, we measure that. And we try to make sure our board members are very involved in helping us achieve our mission. I hope we're doing a better job this year, Brenda, don't you think, in really getting our board members more involved on the strategic planning and initiatives and being focused in ways that they can be much more actively involved as an organization, and that we're better at that as a volunteer level as well. We can all set 1 million goals, but we have decided to narrow it down to our top 10 and really focus on those top 10 goals. Boy, that's hard sometimes because we have goals all over the place. But one of our top 10 goals is making sure we're taking care of our core responsibilities. So that's goal number 10. And then the other 9 are team goals that we're working on together. So we each have our own individual responsibilities that we have to take care of in those gold times that we have. But we're very focused on making sure that we measure that. And we're about to add a life vision. Any of those, does life vision communicate to anything specifically? What do you think that might be? Any thoughts or ideas? What would a life vision be? Do any of you have a life vision of where you'll be? Have you heard of journaling forward? Have you heard of putting yourself in the position that I am, and I am working toward, and I am in the process of Graduating? Who's graduating this year? Raise your hand. Our graduates? Okay. So if you were life visioning, anybody want to volunteer and share what they're going to be doing upon graduating? I'm graduating and I'm going where? Please.
Going to Singapore.
Graduating and going to Singapore. Wonderful. Graduating and?
Going to study national security at grad school.
Going to study national security at grad school. Wonderful. Now, have you already been accepted?
No.
So what grad school are you going to?
I'm applying to the Monterey Institute, Texas A&M, American Institute, University of Texas, and ASU.
Wonderful. And so your top choice?
Ooh, it's a tough one.
Tough one. Okay, so maybe all 5 are in his life vision. He'd be happy if his life vision was at any one of those 5. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So that life visioning process of really putting us in a space where we have achieved some of our goals that we'd like to achieve is a very important part of the process of how we measure and get to that point where as a team we're united and we share that life vision. And it's not just all about Ascend as an organization, but in our careers we're also talking about family, friends, and where we are with the rest of our lives. Please, next slide. So why did I choose Ascend and a career in nonprofit international development? I made a conscious decision to follow my passion. Any of you passionate about anything in life? What are you passionate about? Writing. Wonderful. So you're the English major. That's pretty good. You know, 50-year-old brain, it's not too bad. Okay. How about another passion? Who else is passionate? Please. People. You're passionate about people. What's your major? Sociology. Well, is she well-defined or what? That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Okay. Anybody else passionate? You passionate about anything? Please, yes. Photography. And what are you doing about it?
I do photography for the nonprofit I work for.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And things are posted on the web, and you do a great job of that.
Actually on the wall.
Excellent. Excellent. Somebody else has a passion. Okay. Well, my passion, please, yes.
I'm passionate about geography.
Passionate about geography, and what is your major?
My major is international relations, but my minor is geographic information systems.
Wonderful. So you're combining the two. What a great thing. I love that, because if we follow our passions, and if we really are passionate about what we're doing, if you don't know what you're passionate about, if you leave with nothing else tonight, I hope you'll find that. And I hope as you're looking for your life vision, you're going to latch onto that passion and develop that somehow into a career. Okay? Be realistic about it, of course, but I found a way to follow my passion. I absolutely love international development. That's my passion. I was passionate when I was in school about political science. That was my double major. I was also passionate about broadcast journalism. I thought I was going to be the next Jane Pauley. But one of the things I learned was this second thing, my desire to make a difference and understand my place in the world. Had some interesting experiences while I was interning in school. And I decided that I didn't necessarily want to be on the media side. Okay? I wanted more to be on the action side. Okay? That was a conscious decision that I made. The third thing was the influence of family and friends. My dad, please, yes.
So you having dedicated your life in this organization and just in general service to others,
Absolutely.
how has that affected the way that you raise your family? Because I'm sure it's a big part of your home here at BYU. So you said that they had a lot of really enriching experiences through all the places you guys went. How would the way that you raise your family differentiate from the way that a typical American person raises theirs?
It's really interesting that you'd ask that question, because this friend of ours looked at us, and as Ken and I were talking, we said, how would our family be different if we were in their situation versus the path that we've taken? Entirely different, we think. We have a son who is very involved. He's actually working with Brenda right now. He's been on a couple of internships with us. He is pursuing Latin American business, going to law school as well as an MBA, probably doing the MBA first is his first priority, and then probably a joint JD. And he's already started a business in Latin America. Okay? Now, he did go on a mission to Latin America, but he's not starting his business where the mission was. Business is Colombia, okay? Right adjacent to Ecuador, and where he's been to Ecuador, Bolivia, Peru, and through Colombia. So no question it's impacted him very directly. And he and his wife have already been living overseas, okay? My daughter, okay, same thing. She's very impacted. They've been all over the world with us, and it's been life-changing for our whole family. Yes?
This is her daughter in the picture up here.
Yes, in fact, yeah, this is Rachel right here. And this is me, a younger version. So Yeah, but hair wasn't looking too great that day, so the hat was on. Yes.
I grew up in two different countries. I grew up half my life in Mexico and also here, so I know the experiences that you're speaking of.
Yes.
Really enriching to have to get to go to different places. But if you're traveling so much and you're doing so much of that, is it realistic to expect to be able to have a large family and be like a large family, like, I don't know, 6, 7 kids?
And you'll need to take that into account. I'm going to give Brenda as an excellent example here. Okay, Brenda? The Rindelsbachs have been all over the world. They have a larger family than we do. We just have the 2 children. But the Rindelsbachs have had incredible life-changing experiences. And Brenda, why don't you just come up to the mic and just interject, because they may not be able to hear this. I think this is important from your perspective as a mother and from your perspective of your family.
Well, I think from my perspective, one of my top goals in my life was to give my children experience of many cultures. So not only have we traveled the world, but this is the first time in my life that I have not had someone from another country not live with us. So I've had many students. I've had students come and they were supposed to stay for a month and stayed for 7 years. We've just had them from all over the world, and it has just so enriched my children. The hardest thing I have with my children right now is that they just want to flit around the world. And, you know, there is kind of a time where you really do need to kind of buckle down and have a job, unless you can find a job that goes all over the world. There's just kind of times of your life. When I was young with young children, I didn't take my children out of the country until they were old enough to really understand a lot of. But once they did, we just have a hard time staying in one place for very long. It just dramatically has changed my life and my children's life.
I think international travel, whether we're talking about it being business related or humanitarian related or a combination of both, is such a healthy perspective, and especially going off the beaten track. I was very well traveled before I ever came to this organization. However, I'd never been and seen the level of poverty that I have now over the last 20 years. I thought I was really well traveled. And when I mentioned the family, the influence of a family and friends, my dad was the one who recommended the motto to BYU of enter to learn, go forth to serve. So across the dinner table every night, we had a different student internationally. So that's the kind of upbringing I had. We had people from every country you can imagine across at the dinner table. I thought that's the way everybody grew up. So, you know, I didn't know how unusual this was. So to have had that kind of an experience growing up, I wanted my children to have a similar experience. And we've even been blessed, I think, at a level that my father never had the opportunity, because he's been deceased now for almost 30 years. But the short version is that we've gone and done above and beyond, after the memory of my father, if you will, these kinds of experiences. And my dad's influence in my life and my mother's service orientation was a huge influence on my decision to go down this path. I found nothing but positive. Yes.
Add one thing
Yes.
too. What I'd like to share with you too, my husband just has an incredible memory. So he's just a historian, loves just more information. And so for many years in our married life, we did travel the world, and it was all about gaining information. And one of the defining times for my life was when I added the component of service in with going and having adventures. Yep. And so now not only do I get to go to South America, and I have friends all over South America to visit, but to go and be in camp with people and give service and share those experiences. It's just hard for me to go travel without putting that component with it. It's just so enriched my life.
And they have been the single most defining moments of our family, no question. No question. And we've done a lot of really wonderful things, you know, we really have. But our children will tell you to this day, single most defining moments are when we've had them in the field and working hand in hand together, really making a difference in people's lives. So whether you are a business major or you're into geology or you're into sociology or whatever it may be, whether you end up on the for-profit side of things or the not-for-profit side of things, my strong encouragement would be give your family life experiences. You know, what are you going to leave behind? Okay? You know, our friends, they in their stage of life, even though they've made a lot more money than we have have not nearly the level of life experiences that our family's been able to have. And that's because we've made it a priority, an absolute priority. This last part, commitment to public service. You heard about the Truman Scholarship? So I was fortunate to be the very first Truman Scholar from Utah. So it's a wonderful scholarship. And did that influence my commitment to stay in public service? Absolutely. So that was a nice anchoring point for me. During my university studies, it was at that point where I decided to become a Truman Scholar that the media side of things, it was pretty clear, was less attractive to me, and I was going to be more involved on the public service side of things instead of just following my media career as I'd thought initially. So that was a very defining moment for me. And the last one, because I genuinely love seeing people's lives change, my own life included. I'm a better person. I'm a more giving and understanding and more tolerant person. I understand my place in the world better as a result of going out and being in some of the poorest communities in the world and learning the wonderful values and the wonderful principles that I have from these delightful and special friends. Let's go to the next slide. So does public service make sense for you? That's really the question for this evening. Does this career, for each of you, does it really make sense? Would a career with a non-governmental organization be a dream job or a disaster? So, next slide. I did a little bit of a SWOT analysis here for those who have a business background, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. I take things very much from a business approach. I find that you can run a nonprofit organization from a business approach and be very, very successful. And in fact, it's probably the most appropriate way to run a nonprofit organization. So getting that kind of a background and understanding what the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats are very much a part of anything we look at within our organization. So next slide. The strengths, compelling need. For those of you who haven't had the opportunity to travel and see this level of need, there is huge need, and the poverty is substantial. Never a dull moment, very challenging. Things change all the time, and I can promise you that even though it becomes overwhelming sometimes, it's never dull. You can make a lasting impact on other people's lives. I've seen that, I've witnessed it, I've been a part of it, and I've been very fortunate. And I talked a little bit about that in terms of fulfilling and life-changing for you, okay? It has been for me. I don't know of anyone who's come into this career who has had a passion for it and has been well-suited for it that hasn't found it incredibly fulfilling. So on the weaknesses side of things, nonprofit organizations are often needy. So there is a compelling need that you're addressing, but they're also often needy. So if you're not used to being in a scenario where you really have to find creative solutions and approach it from the standpoint of looking at the strengths and you're overwhelmed by the needs, it may not be for you if you're not up to that challenge. A never-ending to-do list, you have to become very good at managing your time because you become master of many trades and prioritizing. So that's an important part. If you're not good at organizing and you're not good at looking at your life and saying, here are my priorities and I need to stick to those and focus on those and make those happen, then this may be something that doesn't fit you quite as well. The third thing, you can make things worse for others. Now, those of us who have been in development have seen that happen. People who have gone in with the best of intentions, organizations that have really tried to do good things and in fact have left a disaster behind. Unfinished projects, people who become dependent, people who become greedy or even more needy because the development activities were not appropriate. So you have to be very careful in the context of what you're doing, whether you're talking about the local Boys and Girls Club or whether you're talking about developing people's lives overseas, that you really do have a clear focus of how you make things better in a sustainable way instead of potentially making them even worse and more dependent upon the circumstances. And finally, you can become disillusioned. I know people who came into nonprofit organizations with an unrealistic perspective, and whether it's a board member or whether it's a potential employee that was with us or an intern and got very disillusioned very quickly, again, because they came in with expectations that weren't very realistic. Okay?
Can you give us an example of unrealistic expectations?
You bet. The unrealistic expectations is I'm going to run off to Africa and go on safari, and I'm going to have this fabulous experience, and this is just my life dream. It's exactly what I want to do. And then I get there, and I've convinced you, meaning me, I've convinced you that this is exactly what I'm suited to be, and by the time I'm there for a week to 2 weeks, I'm ready to come home. because I had these romantic notions about what Africa would be, instead of recognizing that I would be one pin dot of white in a sea of beautiful black. And that could be scary, right? Overwhelming. Becoming disillusioned that it wasn't just all like Africa on safari, but this was extreme poverty, and this required some real determination and some patience to move forward. So I could become impatient. I could become disillusioned from the standpoint that it wasn't what I'd envisioned. I could become disappointed because I wasn't able to make a difference in 2 weeks like I thought I could. And it really took me 2 years to make the impact that I thought I was going to be able to make in 2 weeks. So lots of different versions of that in the context of unrealistic expectations leading to being disillusioned. Yes, please, Brenda.
Just to kind of play into that, from my perspective, having gone on quite a few expeditions, I think one of the hardest things for most people to kind of feel comfortable with is how to change other people's lives from their point of view. We kind of come at it from our point of view as Americans who have so much, and to go down into other countries that are so impoverished, you can't just go from A to Z. And so it's I think it's very much
Learning
a
experience. You
learning
bet.
experience, and you have to adjust your expectations. That, oh, I have so much I can go down and we'll just change this, when they're not really ready for that, nor do they want that.
And I've seen that in the inner city, in Salt Lake or even here in Provo, okay? But particularly in Salt Lake, a little larger city that has a huge inner city population, have served in the inner city for a year as a service missionary, as well as having interactions with them through the years. And the short version is, whether it's in our backyards or whether it's overseas, a lot of times we have unrealistic expectations and we think we can change things overnight, and we really don't know how. So that leads to a lot of the disillusionment, and in fact, in some cases, making it worse for others as well. Okay, next, you bet. One more question, I'm sorry. There's a question here, please.
What do you feel like the success rate is? How often do efforts completely fail?
I think historically about 70% of the time.
70% they fail? Or
Yes.
70% they
Yes. Yeah. Only about 30% of the efforts are done right and done well. I know that alone can be disillusioning right there, huh? Okay, yes, please.
Is that 70%, is that within your company, or is that more of a broad?
That's a global perspective. You know, I've done a lot of international development classes and kind of studied that, and the short version is that's a pretty broad perspective. Now, has our organization done things that have made things worse? Absolutely. Did we learn from those mistakes early on in our history, and do we hope we haven't repeated those? I think so. But we've even been guilty of it ourselves in our earlier history, and that's something. You know the name development, okay? It's named that appropriately. It's a process, right? We learn through that process. The sad part about it is that people keep going back and repeating mistakes instead of learning from each other. If we were better at breaking down barriers and partnering and learning from each other, instead of all being so headstrong and thinking we have to have the right answer, we would make a lot fewer of those mistakes, and our tipping point would go the other direction, where 70% of the projects would be effective and only 20 or 30%, you know, would be in a scenario where they were not effective. So we need to be better at that as organizations across the board. No matter what your field of endeavor is, again, on the for-profit or the not-for-profit side, we're foolish if we don't reach out to other people and let them mentor us and have those kind of life experiences so that we can learn from others' mistakes and not repeat them. You're headstrong at your age. I was, okay? You got the world by your tail. Find good mentors, okay? Before you go out and make all the mistakes in the world yourself, find some good mentors and learn. Do some internships. Make your life an experiential growing process so that you can really make a difference in a positive way, whether it's in the for-profit or the not-for-profit realm. It'll save you a lot of grief and heartache, and it'll enable you to do wonderful things with your life. On the opportunities and threats, I put them right across from each other. We were kind of having fun here sifting sand up top, and I thought, well, on one side we got the opportunities, we're laughing, and on the other side I'm going, I'm not so sure. This could kind of be a threatening circumstance, so that's why I put the visual up there. Opportunities, help those who need it most. Build strength through partnering. We've talked about many of these. Innovative funding approaches. You notice how I put that as an opportunity, okay? Innovating funding approaches and effective volunteer utilization. To me, those are all wonderful opportunities. I look at them as opportunities. Now come over to the threats side here, okay? Jealousy from others in need, okay? It's essentially the flip side of helping those who need it most. You got the jealousy from others in need on the other side, okay? We've seen that. We've seen witness of that, particularly with other development organizations. On the building strength through partnering, on the right side, associates don't perform. They may even steal from you. We've had our circumstances where we've partnered in various countries of the world and where associates, in fact, didn't end up performing and, in fact, stealing from us. Okay, so that's the flip side to the opportunity of building strength through partnering. Innovative funding approaches. Competition for funding would be the threats, right? We're all after that dollar. We got to have it in our organization, and so we feel threatened by other organizations instead of looking at ways that we can partner together and be innovative in growing our funding solutions. And finally, that last area on the threat side, unreliable or problematic volunteers. Any of you involved with a volunteer organization? Please, any experiences with unreliability? And why didn't every single one of you raise your hand? Come on. Is there a person here who is not involved with a volunteer organization? Do you have any church affiliations here at Brigham Young University? Ah, okay, so let's all raise our hands, right? Have you ever had an experience with unreliable volunteers? Yep. Absolutely, okay. So we have to find creative solutions, don't we? We have to be creative. We have to motivate our volunteers. We have to be committed ourselves as volunteers, don't we? So it can be an opportunity for a way to be effectively utilized, or on the negative side or the threatening side, unreliable and problematic. So there's your SWOT analysis. Let's go to the next slide. So what it takes for an NGO to succeed. I put this up here at this point because I think it's really important. I'm hoping you're going to get involved when the NGO is the non-governmental organization. I hope that even above and beyond your church affiliations, which I assume most of you are LDS in this crew, that's probably safe to assume. But even if you come from a background of a different faith, I hope that you'll get involved in another volunteer organization. And so as you look at that volunteer organization, please be looking for a clear mission. Do they know what, how, who, and where? Do they have guiding principles and values? Do they have a solid approach based on experience? Even if the organization is a new organization, are they gathering people together that have had experience? And are they trying to lean on partnering and resources from other organizations so that they don't make mistakes and so that they learn from others' experiences? Core competencies. Do they really know what their focus and their mission is? Where they're really headed, where they're directed? Or are they just scattered all over the place and don't really know who they are or what they're good at? Do they know what sets them apart? Okay, what makes them different? What makes them uniquely successful? Do they measure and report progress? And do they have donor participation? Now think about this. If we're members of the LDS Church, how do we donate? Tithing, absolutely. And do we participate? I hope so. You know, I hope pretty much every Sunday we're there. And usually the opportunities that we have require outside participation, don't they? Well, why is it that we forget that when we get involved with other volunteer organizations? This is a beautiful model that the LDS Church has. It's very difficult to duplicate it in its entirety because it's a different level of commitment, I grant you, when you're involved in a religious organization. But you can get close, okay? You can get as close as possible by really encouraging appropriate levels of donor participation. So the next slide. Skills and attributes. Yes, please.
What are some of the things that you found successful in improving donor participation?
Our expeditions and our internships and making better utilization of our board members and our advisors. Really giving them specific roles and responsibilities, training people better, spending time building your volunteer program instead of seeing it as a necessary evil. Yes, please.
Where do you find most of your donors, where they're coming from?
Was that most of our volunteers or our donors or both?
The donors.
The donors. Donors are usually private. Oftentimes they come to us and they get involved in expeditions and then they continue to donate afterwards. They're making a donation to us even by their involvement in expeditions. That's one of our income streams. They're paying their way to go.
Are they mostly, are they just like private, are they
Yes, yes, and yes. Okay? So companies, individuals, families, groups, organizations like Rotary clubs, schools, do an expedition with a class even. We've collaborated through the years where we've done expeditions with BYU classes as capstones. We've done internships in combination, obviously, with the BYU, with the University of Utah, with various other universities, both within the state of Utah and other states. So yes, collaborating through that side of helping people to be active donor participants. One of the beauties of our model is our expeditions and that interactive donor participation. You bet. Yeah, great question. Okay, passion. My opinion of your nonprofit development opportunities, or whatever nonprofit sector you're going to go into, whatever it is, if you're passionate about it, wonderful. Stick with it. Do everything you can to make it work. If you're not, better get rid of it. Better leave it. Okay? Life's too short. Okay? You need to focus on what you're passionate about, especially if this is a volunteer effort, especially if this is not your career. Okay? Focus on what you're passionate about. Be a great volunteer. Be a great intern. And then if it develops into a career, wonderful. If it doesn't and you're on the for-profit side of things and it becomes a passion for you in combining with your for-profit side of things, that's a wonderful thing. That's what Reed's going to do. Okay? Perfect example of a wonderful intern with us. Both work equally as well. That's what my son's going to do. He's going to be on the business side of things, but he's approaching it right from the get-go that the business can set aside part of its proceeds to help change lives in Columbia. Cool. Okay? Very, very cool. So, vision and positive attitude. See where you're going and believe you can get there. We talked about that life vision. I hope if you haven't done it, just at least journal forward, will you? Okay? Make yourself some sort of a life vision. Be positive about where you want to go. Where are you going to be in 2 years? Where are you going to be in a year from now? Write those things down and put yourself as if you're actually in that location and what you're going to accomplish. And find your path to get there. Initiative and innovation. Take action and dare to be different. Sometimes this is scary. We make mistakes. We've made plenty of them through the years. We got hit hard during the recession. We're still coming out of it. We were fortunate that we were creative and did some things right before the recession hit, or we wouldn't be here today. So mistakes are made, okay? But the bottom line is you learn from those and dare to be different. Dare to take that initiative and to move forward. You'll find your niche, and that'll help you to be successful. Fundraising and marketing, revenue streams. We've talked a little bit about this, but I hope you won't just depend on the Christian begging model. Okay? The LDS Church certainly hasn't. They have businesses all over the place. Okay? Tithing is an important part. No question about it. But the church would not be nearly in the position it's in if they didn't have a number of business ventures going to also support the growth and the development of the church. So let's be smart about that. Okay? That's what we're focused on right now. Is part of that innovation and that initiative is really setting up revenue streams with socially responsible businesses that will contribute to Ascend as a part of who they are. Not just on a one-time basis, but ongoing percentage of revenue coming to our organization. Okay? Make it fun. Make it sustainable so it'll really work for you over time. And finally, multitasking. Wendy? How do you feel about this? Juggle or get buried? Is that pretty accurate?
Yes.
Okay. So we just put on lots of hats, especially in a nonprofit organization. If you're not prepared to juggle, you will get buried and you will hate it. Okay? Maybe if you're in a bigger nonprofit, you'll have the luxury of, compartmentalization. But whether you're thinking about a for-profit or a not-for-profit career, I hope you'll look at this. Some people belong in bigger corporate structures. Some people do a lot better when they don't have to juggle and they have secretaries and assistants and all kinds of other people where they can compartmentalize things. If that's your desire, then either find a big nonprofit organization or a big for-profit organization. But don't try to be entrepreneurial and don't try to be in a small nonprofit. Okay? So just know who you are. Your teamwork, communication. You can't do this alone. We're heavily dependent upon volunteers. You've got to build a good team, even if a lot of those team members are volunteers. And you have to do that. You have to be someone who loves working as a team. If you're going to be a dictator, chances are your organization may succeed a little bit for a while and then it'll fall flat on its face. I know a lot of people who have founder syndrome, whether that's on the for-profit or not-for-profit side. Have you heard of founder syndrome? Where an organization is totally built around one person And when they leave, what happens? Falls apart, doesn't it? Okay? And in some cases, it falls apart even before they leave because they drive everybody else away. So teamwork is critically important. Networking, who you know is important. How many of you keep track of people's phone numbers? In our day of technology, do you know that when I was back in school, I used to have one of those old, big, clunky, Franklin Covey day planner things, but I actually kept track of people's phone numbers. When you get a cell phone number of somebody's, when you get a contact point of somebody, start filing them. Keep track of those contacts and networks that you're making now. They'll become very valuable to you in your life. I am so grateful for the networks and the associations that I've had through my life, and that I can go back even to my college years and call upon people, even before, yes, your wonderful smartphones and everything else that you have. I kept records, and I can still go back and call upon those. Finally, tenacity. Find a way to make it work. If you're not a person who's really tenacious, then you're going to have a challenge, especially in a smaller nonprofit organization. This takes a lot of tenacity, a lot of diligence, a lot of willingness to sacrifice and say, I will find a way to make this work. Because there are a lot of times you look at it and go, wow, how are we ever going to get from point A to point B? So, very important, okay? Public service career with an NGO, dream job, or disaster. Find out for yourself. How do you think we could do that? Try it out. Internship, wonderful. So we brought some flyers tonight, not that I'm just advertising for us, okay? But we would love to have you come and have an internship experience with us if you're well suited for our organization. And we give you a stellar, life-changing experience. Read in 5 or 6 words. Are you utilized when you come to Ascent?
Yes.
Okay. Do you ever come in and feel like you don't have anything to do?
Not very often.
Okay. Do you have important responsibilities?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you setting up businesses that will potentially change people's lives, not only for our organization, but for the businesses involved?
Yeah.
Yeah, no question. Okay. So in the context of what we have our interns do, it's a really important part of a staff position for us. They become part of our team. Okay. We treat them just like our other staff members, and we have very high expectations of our interns. Now, we try to work within your hours. Reads about 10 or 12 hours a week, but bottom line is we keep him really busy for those 10 or 12 hours a week that he's with us. So that's a lovely way for you to do it, is to get involved. Now, if Ascend doesn't fit you, find the organization that does and really experiment. What else can you do? Please, what else can you do besides intern? Yes?
Here at BYU, there's a club called Students for International Development. It meets here in this room every Thursday at 7:30 p.m.
Wonderful. And you can get your feet wet, can't you? With different organizations, learning about them, learning about processes, and you take on actual projects, don't you, as a part of that club? No, it's a wonderful way. Kennedy Center is a wonderful way. You're interacting with lots of different organizations here. Can you go down to your neighborhood Boys and Girls Club and volunteer? Absolutely. Okay. Whatever fits your need and your desire and your time frame. Our typical interns, we require them to give us at least 10 hours a week. And Reed's a BYU student, so he comes up a couple of days a week when he can, and when he can't, he only comes up 1 day a week. And we work remotely. So we're flexible in that regard, but we do expect that you're going to set aside at least 10 hours a week to work with us so we can give you meaningful involvement. If that doesn't fit your circumstances right now, then maybe you just start out volunteering 2 or 3 hours a week with an organization closer to home. Okay?
Carolyn, can I interject?
Please.
There's so many different opportunities. You all have specific gifts and talents that you've been blessed with. And whether your passion is sociology or whether it's photography or even geology, if Ascend isn't the organization that matches what that passion or desire you have, there probably is an organization that can leverage your gifts and talents in a nonprofit or meaningful way in outreach. So this is a wonderful way to really, again, think about what it is that you've been blessed with, and then maybe look and do some research on the type of organization that can maximize on your gifts and talents. And just from my experience working with a nonprofit, we do need interns, and we need people that are gifted and talented, and even, I would say, better than us at some of the things. I can't do some of the financial crunching that Reed does. There's no way.
Ditto that. Yep.
And that's why we maximize on his gifts and talents that helps us drive our mission forward. And he's one of many gifts and talents, graphic skills, IT skills, those kinds of things we leverage and need. So anyway, I just wanted to interject that because there's such an overwhelming need to support a staff and move a positive mission forward.
And Wendy, that's a beautiful statement too, because all of you need experience inside of an organization. You need real life experience while you're a student. I did as many internships as I possibly could, even though it didn't matter that I wasn't getting credit, okay? I graduated with way too many hours for the number of internships that I did. But you know, I learned through the process what I really wanted to do. And that was so important for me. I still kept it within the 4-year cycle, but I just overloaded, you know, because I had so many different things that I wanted to try out. But I knew what I wanted to do when I finished, which was really important and really valuable for me. And I never would have had that opportunity, I'm convinced, if I hadn't done some internships. Yes?
In terms of leveraging on people-specific skills, like in general across NGOs, what are some of like the skills that seem to be most lacking, most in need of, like in terms of like financial things or graphic arts or whatnot?
Yes, all of the above. No, honestly, you can raise your hand. It depends on what staff people we have on board, okay? Depends on what our own skill sets are. Just like Wendy was saying, you know, I can do a spreadsheet and it looks okay. And I can do a spreadsheet and change numbers. Reed knows this, but it takes me 3 times as long to do it as it does him. So to leverage his skills, even though I have the capacity to do that, it's just so much smarter. And it looks prettier and it's better and all of those good things. So functions better. It's wonderful. So we want to have interns who will not necessarily just duplicate what we're doing, but enable us to do it even better. So really, whatever your skill sets are as far as Ascent is concerned, since we partner with so many different organizations on the expedition and intern side of things, we literally can utilize almost any skill set. Some of our best students, our best interns have been rec management. I mean, I told you that when I met you earlier tonight. Yeah. So just don't think that anything is outside of the realm. We have engineering students who have been interns with us, and we have a special scholarship called the Craig Taft Engineering Internship that we specifically focus on engineering students that not only help us here from home, but then actually go overseas and help us with projects internationally. So whatever your background and skill set may be, most of those engineers will end up in for-profit businesses. Fabulous. But what a cool thing to be able to get your feet wet and interact with a municipality and help to put in place a water system overseas. That's pretty good stuff, you know, especially on a resume. So it'll build your resume, it builds your experience, and it helps the organization. Okay, so next slide. Test the waters. We talked about identifying successful organizations who have a mission you could be passionate about. Look for a good mentor, volunteer, serve as an intern. And here's my last commentary, and there's one quote that's important before we leave. If you like a fat life, and you see it as such, develop skills needed to thrive, and can enjoy a skinny pocketbook, it may be a dream come true. And I will put the emphasis when we talk about skinny pocketbook. You remember how we talked about our friend who we were comparing net worths with? Well, if you're thrifty and if you work together, especially in your relationship with your spouse, and you're smart, you can still have a nonprofit career, you can still thrive, and you can still end up being able to take care of your family and have a wonderful retirement for yourself. I don't mean to say you're in poverty, okay? It's not what I'm intending. But the point is that you're not going to probably have the big palatial house. So if that's important to you, then it's probably not going to work for you. But if you're happy and you can be content with building your future with your family and doing it in a conservative way, and you are passionate about the nonprofit side of things, then it really can be a dream come true. The final slide. I love this quote from President Monson, and so I'm going to read it verbatim. He who gives money gives much. We all need money. He who gives time gives more. He who gives himself gives all. That's what this is about. It's about giving ourselves. And my hope is for each of you tonight that whether you end up pursuing a career with a nonprofit organization or whether you're on the for-profit side, that you'll remember this quote and that it will drive what you do, and that even if you end up with that big palatial house, keep it in balance and make sure that you give as much as you're getting in your life, in the context especially of improving yourself through servant leadership, improving yourself by going out and making a difference in other people's lives. The motto, enter to learn, go forth to serve, that you have here at the university that I lived as a child, I'm trying really hard to keep pace with that even as an adult. And I think that's a great motto for you to have in your lives, and I hope you'll really do that. And even while you're here, learning that you'll go forth to serve even as you're an undergraduate or a graduate student, and really develop and get some of those experiential opportunities so that when you do graduate and you do move on and you do complete your graduate studies, that you'll be just that much better at already serving. So those are the thoughts. Okay, please, questions?
Do you have any projects involved in the U.S.?
You bet. Our primary programs, though, are focused on the training of interns. So we have interns who come to our office, and they get involved with us specifically in training with us and helping us get the expeditions prepared and helping learn how an international development organization functions, and that's our primary goal. We do interact and interface with other organizations like the Park City 5, et cetera, that are doing different things in the backyard. But again, we try not to spread ourselves too thin. We stay focused. Okay. Yep. Great comments. Yes, please. We don't right now, but that doesn't mean we won't in the future, but currently no. Yep. Please.
I guess it's two questions. Do you have any in Mongolia? And maybe you don't.
We don't.
Also, an example of how, because you said that you failed a lot, more of a specific example of that.
We put in a water system one time in a community without properly discussing it with the regional government and the municipality, et cetera. And we came back the next year and the water system was entirely ripped out. So thousands of dollars and lots of labor and lots of time. And you know what happened? It was the neighboring community that ripped it out. It was jealousy. So when you talk about making things worse, what had we done? Instead of building rapport and relationships amongst the community, because we went in and we focused on this very needy village without helping to make sure we'd networked everybody into the process and that they understood our intention was to help a number of communities. And we didn't involve the municipality. We just did it. We flew under the radar screen, came back, project had been all ripped out by the neighboring community. Sad. Doesn't get much more sad than that. I can repeat that same circumstance with a different organization, not ours, a much more expensive water system that was put in over in Africa. Similar thing. Tried to fly under the radar, didn't get proper relationships developed with the municipality, et cetera. Municipality actually came in and put locks and guards on the water project so that the people in the community couldn't use it. It seems crazy to you, doesn't it? It seems crazy to me, but again, appropriate procedures and really understanding all the players that are involved and who needs to be on the team and just marching forward and thinking you're doing a really great thing without making sure you crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's. There are hundreds of examples similarly, sadly thousands of examples similarly, where you'll see projects that aren't working anymore because of jealousy, not proper authority, not proper approvals, not working properly as a team. Yep. Okay, so y'all gave me some magic tonight. Put your hand on here. Put your hand on here. Hand on here, huh? You participated, great, okay. Hands on here, yeah, your magic, right? Y'all got some good ideas here tonight, we hope, yes, right? Okay. So here's what I hope you have, at least as you're leaving tonight, a little bit more of a full color picture, right? Of what it's like to be part of a nonprofit organization. Thank you.